Okay, I need to ask you something before we get into it. I'm going to show up really vulnerable today, so this is your invitation to show up too. If you had to rate yourself on how organized you are on a scale of 1 to 7, where would you land? Because I had to do this. Back in May, I actually took a qualification whereby I had to sit and rate myself on a scale of 1 to 7 across 11 different executive function skills. And part of it was so I could determine how high my metacognition actually is, like how well I actually know myself. This is I don't know why this feels so vulnerable and why this has taken me so long to film, but I rated myself in organization a 3 on 7. Because I thought, look, it's less than half. It's not great. Turns out it's really not great. In fact, it is a 2 on 7, which the standardized book tells me is a problem. So immediately I went into, I guess a little bit of a shame spiral. How on earth could my organization be a 2 on 7? That sucks. My job, my entire career is built upon supporting other people to organize themselves so they could achieve. I definitely went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but after that rabbit hole is what I want to talk about today. Because instead of asking how on earth can I cope with such low EF skills and organization, I started asking a different question, and I think it's a question that's worth sharing, so that is what we're here for today. If you're new, my name is Sarah Lynn. This is the Mindful Toolbox podcast, a space that blends together emotional well-being and academic confidence. And today, the tables are turned and they are on me, and we're doing a Yap-style video for the first time with zero script, and let's just see how it goes. So I think it's important that we get a little bit of context. So we're going to back up a little bit. What is the course that I'm taking? So I'm taking the Executive Function Coaching course with connections in mind. It is an IEFCC qualification, and it basically allows you to coach individuals in ways that support the development of their executive function skills. As a short description, executive function skills are created in your prefrontal cortex, and it's the last part of your brain to develop, and it is in charge of anything to do with organization, planning, prioritization, goals, anything that really school demands of us. And so that's why I was so pulled to this course, because I thought, look, this is my career. This is where I spend my time. This is how I've noticed there's a lot of crossovers across PTSD and anxiety and ADHD and dyslexia, and there must be something that's impacted across all of those labels. And so that's why I decided to go into this course, and I thought, who knows, maybe I'll learn something about myself as well. And what do you know? There's lots of self-reflection going on, which really shouldn't be that big of a surprise, because one of the executive function skills is metacognition. So your ability to self-reflect and understand how you do stuff. And I believe that part of me is actually really quite high. And so when I had to rate that, I put myself as I think a 5 or a 6. I'm going to pop it up here. A 5 or a 6 on 7. Turns out the quiz agreed, and that is a really high skill for me. So that's really positive. So like I said, I went through and I rated myself across these 11, and then I had the quiz. Talk about feeling seen. That can mean both a positive and an intimidating thing, right? To feel seen feels really vulnerable. So when I got my results back, turns out my emotional regulation, my flexibility, and my metacognition were higher than I even rated for myself. So that was really kind of cool. Now, I've already shared with you my organization. I rated low. It was lower. The surprising one, I think, actually was my planning and preparation. No, planning and prioritization. I thought that would be medium because obviously you run a business, you plan things. There's a lot of things that you need to organize, even just to create all of these videos. lower than I anticipated. So like I said, at first, my immediate response when I got my results was embarrassment. How on earth can I continue in this career that I've chosen when my own skill set doesn't line up with what I think it should? How on earth can I support families to build resources around exam prep when I don't have planning and prioritization skills that even meet normal functioning adults? How on earth can I do all of these things? I was really getting in my head, and I know I'm not the only one, but it still feels very vulnerable to share. So if you've also got in your head, please drop in the comments that this is a normal experience so we can normalize it for each other, for me, basically. And while I was going through this, I was just thinking, okay, there has to be something here because there's like a duality that exists. I have this executive function profile that's telling me I'm low, real low in these skills, but I have on the outside this appearance of being someone who is organized, someone who is able to plan, someone who can show up on time because I do those things in my business. So we have this duality. And then I started thinking, well, how can that be? Okay, so I brought it back. Well, I've got systems. And then throughout this course, I realized I have systems, but doesn't mean that they're always efficient. Now, to understand this, I want you to step into my brain for a second and I guess maybe reflect to see if this is something that you experience too. For me, I feel like I almost have two different personas. I've got the business persona that doesn't miss deadlines, that is totally on top of things, very organized, very planned, very time effective, and is in alignment with what that picture of someone who runs a business should be. And then you have the other persona, the one that's not on the clock, and she struggles. I'm not gonna lie. I was with a friend the other day. We said hello in the car park. I grabbed my key, unlocked my door, got into my car, and then when I was trying to think back of why is my key not in the same spot that I always put it in the car console, and then I started thinking, oh my gosh, maybe it's in the bag that I just gave my friend, and because she's just driving in front of me, it means that my car can still run because it has that auto stop if the key's not around. And then I started thinking, but we're about to split. So what happens if that key is actually inside her bag and I just have a car that stops? So I call her and I'm like, I can't find my key. And she's like, okay, not a problem. So calm, cool, and collected. Why? Why does that happen? Because it's a recurring theme. I forget things, I lose things, I misplace them, and my brain sometimes just goes a little offline when I'm in certain scenarios. And so originally I was like, well, I have these struggles in the personal life, but they don't exist in the business life. So there must be systems, but why are they not translating? Like, why are they not as effective as they can be? And then the really cool thing about being in this course is that it had specific time to reflect on how we would support our clients. And because I had that specific time in my diary, I started to self-reflect. I have systems, they're not translating, and they may not all be efficient. And I'm wondering, is that like that in your home? Do you have systems or things that you just do because that's the routine and they're maybe not supporting you or your child as much as they could? So for instance, I've walked into homes for families where there are whiteboards everywhere. And as someone who uses whiteboards, I was just like, yes, a fellow whiteboarder, I love that. And then I started thinking about why I use my whiteboard. I've got two in my home. One is really big and it sits in front of my coat closet. And it's like the catch-all, basically. It has all of the important dates from now until September. We're July. It has the week and is color-coded in tasks. So anything that's to do with personal is one color, business is another, second business is another, YouTube is another, anything to do with the dog. It's all color-coded, but it's on a whiteboard, which I find so much less intimidating. And then under it, I have the tasks that are non-negotiable. And as things come and go throughout the week, I'm able to really quickly change things. I didn't like that it was in pen on my diary. I love pen and paper, but for whatever reason, the whiteboard just seemed more forgiving. So I've gone into the whiteboard vibe. And I was reflecting how this whiteboard has been really helpful. But it still doesn't necessarily allow me to decide what I need to do first. Like, what do I have to act on first? Even I have my plan and then something else unexpected comes into play, the whiteboard's not going to help me prioritize that. So I have a system, but there's a huge gap in how it supports my brain, my executive function. And so when I noticed that, I realized I thought that this whiteboard was the holy grail of solutions. It was that quick fix, you know? I was really pleased because it's externalized things. It's helped them stay visible to help the working memory, but it didn't actually take it that step further in helping me to prioritize things. So it didn't create a full solution. And if we shift gears and look at time management, I gave myself a 2 because I'm that person that is always late and knows they're always late. And so I've walked around with the identity, and my friends and family, they already know because it's just ingrained. I'm always late. I gave myself a 2. Turns out it's a 4. So I started reflecting, okay, I'm not sad by that one. I'm not happy by that one. Why did that one not feel as emotionally jarring to see, even though it's quite low on the scale? And I think it's because I had internalized that I'm not an on-time person, that I am a person who is always late. That has become an identity. So when it showed and reinforced that identity, it was like, yeah, that makes sense. It almost strengthened that identity of being late. And so while I was going through this rabbit hole of my brain, trying to figure out, well, if there's systems that I'm using for planning and prioritization that are effective, but not a full solution, then I wonder what other skills I could see if there are systems or aren't systems. So I started looking at time management because that one's a quick feedback one. You get accountability, and I really like the big wow factor that it gives people when you show up early to things when you are a late person. If you are looking for that dopamine hit, show up early and surprise your friends. Their reaction feels mighty good, or at least it did for me. So I started thinking, like, what systems can I put in place to make sure that I could potentially see a change between now and the end of my course for time management? So I gave myself 2 things to look at. The first thing was to put in my phone a reminder, or I guess an alarm, of when I should be out the door. Now, this is so I could get there on time. Like, what time do I need to be leaving the house? But then I decided to play a little trick on myself and put in a buffer of 7 minutes. Don't know why 7, and don't know why I still think that I've tricked myself rather than I've just accepted that I'm giving myself a bigger buffer than I thought. However, it's how my brain has allowed for this process to happen. So I have a timer now that goes in my phone when I'm sitting there and I know that I have to go and meet my friend for a dog walk. I will set my alarm in the morning to make sure that I'm up on time, and I will automatically now, thank you, habit stacking, set an alarm for when I should be out the door. It turns out that I'm never out the door when that alarm goes off still, but because I've built in that buffer, I end up being either on time or, let me hear it in the back, early. I'm showing up early to things, guys. It's very, very non-normal for me, and I'm also getting used to it. And the wild thing isn't even just that I'm so excited that I'm now early and I get to be like, haha, I'm early, and surprise everybody. That's starting to wear off, I think. That's not good long-term dopamine support for building and ingraining this habit. No, what I've learned is I've been racing around for probably my entire life that I never noticed that I was showing up everywhere very dysregulated. I didn't notice it until there was a contrast. When I started showing up early and going into things, not fawning, not over apologizing, not over explaining, not taking up so much space and asking how you're doing and trying to get the energy right because now I feel bad that I've wasted your time. When I'm not doing that, when I'm not in that performative state, wow, the energy is so different. But I never knew that. I thought that I was always late, and so it was normal. And I just thought the rest kind of came with it. But what I really, really internalized here was how much less energy was being expended on that fawning, on that dysregulation. Remember when we've talked about Lisa Feldman Barrett, she talks about the body budget and how our body has a certain amount of energy. And when we're in a heightened state, it expends energy a lot faster. And this is such an easy thing to check, because when you are entering into a space and you're late, you're dysregulated, you're flustered, you're over talking, you're just like in a frenzy, you are dysregulated, your body budget is expending incredibly fast, you're leaving those interactions way more exhausted than if you had showed up 5 minutes early and walked into it regulated. There's less energy being expended. Like, when I realized that, and I realized I'm getting exhausted by 4 o'clock, and I don't want to live that way, but then I started realizing how if I showed up a little bit earlier, which actually doesn't take that much effort, I have more energy. That was a payoff I feel silly to say, I didn't even put together could be a payoff. But I felt like it was really important that you can see as well that sometimes these little shifts, these little changes can have the result that we expect, right? Be on time. That's nice. That's a gold star moment. Get a little dopamine. But there's so many more hidden benefits to it that it's just got me really excited on ways that I can continue developing this in myself, but how I can support families too. We are in our second heat wave here, and it is hot. It is very hot today. Okay, so now that I feel like I've painted a real good picture for you of who I am behind the scenes, I guess this is where you're wondering, like, that's great, but how does it relate to me? Fair. Very fair point. So this is my thinking. I think a lot of us have done this. I think a lot of us create systems either without even knowing that we're putting them in place or because they suit our brains. And then we have children, or we have a partner, or we have friends over or something, and there's a mismatch, there's a misalignment, or it's just no longer efficient anymore. It doesn't serve us to continue, but we keep doing that same system for many different reasons. But my question to you is, take that moment now. Think about it right now. Like, I was so grateful that that course made me stop and reflect, because otherwise I would be still jumping around thing to thing to thing, dysregulated and not on time. And so it took a moment, permission for me to go, actually, let's turn this on me. Let's look at it for me. So I'm giving you that permission. If you need a permission slip, like Brené Brown talks about, I'm giving it to you. You have permission to take some time to reflect on the different systems that you have or need to have in your home in order to support your family ecosystem. And it sounds weird to spend an entire video kind of like balancing on the fact that you need to ask yourself if your system is efficient to be the takeaway here, but I really think it is the takeaway here, because we go through life, maybe that's too big to say, but we go through life kind of just going through the motions. And if we don't pause and we don't reflect and we don't ask ourselves, hey, are we working smart or are we just working hard? Like, if we don't give ourselves time to let that answer breathe and try and find ways to tweak it. We're just, I don't even know if I should say this, but like, what's that saying? When you want something to change, no, what is it? Basically, the definition of madness is repeating a behavior and expecting the outcome to change. Something like that. We don't want madness here. We want to support not only ourselves, but our children too. And speaking of children, your child may have that. They may have a strategy that you taught them that actually doesn't serve them anymore. And that sucks. That sucks to hear. It sucks to notice, especially to notice because now you have to go, now what? And I know that's probably where you're sitting right now. And you're probably saying, yes, Sarah-Lynn, you've rambled on. And we do. We want to know, now what? Tell us the answer. What's the quick fix? What are we going to do to help change the ecosystem and make our systems more efficient? I can't give you that answer, not in full, and I am sorry for it, but I think sometimes it's not necessarily about the outcome, it's the quality of the question. And the quality of the question will help you to determine what your child needs. And it's not going to be the same. There's no quick fix. There's no specific way of doing things. I know this channel, we've done a lot of this is how you could approach it, but if you're neurodivergent, this is another way you could approach it. And I stand so firmly in providing contextual information and frameworks that you can build on. But we also always talk about how you and your child have all of the knowledge, and that actually a lot of it is going to be test and error, test and trial. And that's the same here. But not as all lost, not entirely. But as always, I am an ally here and I can help. And one of the ways that I can help is through facilitating the structural understanding of knowing what your child's executive function profile looks like, what your executive function profile looks like, and what that means in terms of solving things like they just won't sit down and do their homework. They blank in an exam. Why are they so wild when they come home, but their teachers say they're absolutely stellar in class? Why is it that they just won't get anything done and I have to nag them nonstop? Why are they so explosive? If those are the questions that you have in your mind, why can't they go to school? Why are they anxious? Like all of those questions, then understanding your child's executive function profile will be so empowering to you and to them, so that you're not just attaching like quick fix things anymore. You're not just grabbing off Pinterest the revision schedules, or you're not just making all of these lists because lists suit you, but instead we're actually going straight to the source. We're looking at the clear strengths and areas needing improvement, and we're building a system around that supports everybody in the house. And the way we can do that is in the September cohort. It's a new program that I'm launching. It is 6 months. We meet once a month for 90 minutes in a small group setting. It is all about parenting your child's brain. Emphasis on your child's brain. It is a way that we look at the ebbs and flows of the school system, and we find out how you can support your child with efficient systems, not quick fixes. Not everyone in that group will have the same cut and copy paste. Instead, we use our group experience to learn from each other, to test and measure, and to borrow from other people's 1,000 hours. It allows us to get there quicker. But for today is just the question. Is the system that we're working from, is it efficient? What is it accomplishing? Pulling us full circle. So the course that I got qualified in, I am officially, as of July, an executive function coach level 1 with the IEFCC, thanks to Connections in Mind. I'm not mentioning it for the title. It is a mouthful and I don't want to be repeating it again and again. Instead, I'm sharing it because of everything we've talked about, of everything that I talk to parents about in the comments, in the front door, hallway, entrance area, on phone calls. All of the things that I keep talking to parents about Whether your child is neurotypical, neurodivergent, EBSNA, PTSD, it doesn't matter which lens we look from. Every single brain has an executive function profile, and every single brain has those EFs impacted by things like your environment, your ability to handle stress, your nutrition, your sleep, your lifestyle. And so I'm mentioning it because I did not expect to go through this course, go back to school in my 30s, and come away with such a profound internal shift. I thought, do the course. We love knowledge. We love learning. We love being able to add value to those around us. And when our families are in between having diagnoses or not sure what it is and don't know how to speak to their SENCO, I was and still am so motivated by the fact that we have a shared language now across GPs, across the SENCOs, across different providers. Like, that lights me up. What I didn't expect is how it made me reframe my own systems. And I guess understand what it feels like to look at results and be surprised and deal with shame and frustration and guilt and sadness and a little bit of grief and identity shifting, to be honest. And I think it's important that this channel, I love that I can nerd out with you and share everything that I spend my waking hours researching, but I also want you to know the person behind the scene is also going through things in learning and developing, and that is what this is all about. It's all about all of us constantly learning and evolving and getting to know different parts of ourselves, and that is how we can support our children to be resilient, to show up wonderfully themselves in their life. Anyway, thank you for being here for this one. It is a different one because this is not going to be edited. I guess it's less framework based than what we're used to being here, but I really do hope that you see the importance of the value of the questions that we're asking. And I hope you make sure that you have some time today to reflect upon it as a family and determine, are the systems in place actually doing what they're meant to be doing, or could they be a little bit more empowering? And I guess a gentle reminder that if that question is giving you back an answer that is a little uncomfortable, good. It means that you're in the right place, you're asking the right questions, and you're pushing yourself. And that is going to help tremendously. The September cohort link is in the show notes if you want to do this work intentionally. And if you want a little bit more information, again, about how the brain is impacted by your anxiety and by external pressures, then I think heading into this video about anxiety is your next best step. But until then, enjoy your day. Make sure you stay safe with the sun because it's very hot here. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.